The Home Affairs Department is racing to clear a backlog of tens of thousands of visa applications. Minister Aaron Motsoaledi told Parliament that weekly management meetings are being held to monitor turnaround times. Let's speak to immigration lawyer Gary Eisenberg about this now. Gary, a very good evening to you. Grateful for your time on News at Prime tonight. How big a problem is this? Because as I understand it, even the deadline to have cleared the backlog by June of next year has had to be extended to November, which is almost a year from now.
Hi, yes, good evening. I think if you crystallize the problem, it's about compliance with the Constitution. It's about delivering services within a reasonable period of time to members of the public. That's what it amounts to. Keeping the lights off by Eskom. These are public services that have been stymied and paralyzed. In the case of the Department of Home Affairs, it's becoming a huge problem for foreigners. But I'm not sure what kind of problem it is to government, because if there's a will, there's a way. If foreigners or rendering services to foreigners, or South African employers who wish to employ foreigners, this is not a national priority. Obviously not. The Department of Home Affairs employs thousands and thousands of people, and if there was a will to create an efficient system of adjudicating applications of all kinds, work visas, study visas, you name it, a whole panoply of different kinds of applications, there'd be no agitation, there'd be no concern. This would never be raised to the level of protest we have reached now. So I don't think there's sufficient political will to make the system more efficient.
And there are over 74,000, at least as per the numbers given by Home Affairs Minister Aaron Motsoaledi in September of this year. There are 74,000 or so applications that are still waiting. You talk about where there's a will, there should be a way. What in the system currently is simply not working to ensure that there's actual fast movement in dealing with these applications, whether they're approved or declined?
Well, I've got two things to say. The first thing is this. Even the number, 74,000, 80,000, 60,000, what are we talking about? Are we talking about applications that have been put in the first time, or are we also speaking about administrative appeals that are pending? Remember, a lot of these applications are refused. They're rejected, which forces the applicant to put in an appeal or an application for review. Now, that number could be far, far larger when you take into consideration appeals and review applications pending before the Director General or the Minister. That's the first thing. So the statistic itself is misleading. Second of all, we're also talking about a department in paralysis, not complying with court orders. So what foreigners do who are in trouble, who are not receiving answers fast enough, they go to the High Court and they get an order to compel the department to issue a determination within a specific period of time. Many of those orders are not being complied with. So if you look at the Department of Home Affairs carrying out its constitutional mandate, I think they're in big trouble.
But even in terms of the options, right, in chasing the Home Affairs Department and ensuring that there's fast movement, not everyone is able to have those resources at their disposal. So what about the majority of people who may, for example, be in need of paperwork to come and work in the country because they've secured said employment, etc.?
Well, you're absolutely right. To litigate in our high courts is a very expensive and inconvenient process, and it doesn't always work the first time. One may even have to go to court to enforce the order after it's been granted, and the Department of Home Affairs doesn't comply with the order the first time or even the second time. So you're quite right. It's very expensive for the ordinary work visa or study visa applicant. A lot of people are walking away. They're simply going elsewhere. They can't wait a year and a half for a work visa application to be processed or a spousal visa to be processed. And a lot of people are leaving the country, helping the outflow, the brain drain, the outflow of much needed skills to fill some of our skills deficits in our labor market. And the Department of Home Affairs is looking at this with its hands in its pocket, scratching its head and walking in the opposite direction. If a foreigner doesn't like waiting, they should leave and go to Argentina or some other country. And that's really the bureaucratic attitude that many foreigners have experienced, and this is the direction it's going.
How fair a sentiment is that to say Home Affairs has got its hands in its pockets? Because when they've appeared before Parliament, they've given the impression that they're doing their best, but the issue is that capacity is taking long to build, and that they've got a plan, I forget the name now, that is in place where, for example, they're splitting some of the teams, joining people elsewhere to make sure that there's actual movement to sort this out. So is it a fair judgment to say they're standing with their hands in their pockets?
Well, the Department of Home Affairs, I've been around for almost 30 years, and my partners on the other side have been Home Affairs officials. This is all I've done in my professional career. And I've seen the Department of Home Affairs exclaim to the public repeatedly over the last 25 years at least, that they are in the process of improvement, spending hundreds of millions of rands on new computer equipment, reconfigurations, employing expensive consultants to assist them in these so-called turnaround projects. And we are 25 years later, and the Department of Home Affairs has not managed, with all this taxpayers' money, to turn itself around. And I wonder, when it speaks about a turnaround project or a project of any sort to improve efficiencies, and it says that before Parliament, or it says that at the Constitutional Court, or it says that anywhere else, that this is going to be of any assistance to the expatriate community seeking efficient service provision from the department.
They're also curious about which categories of people, because we're talking about residency, permanent or otherwise, which categories of workers who will be coming into South Africa are most affected?
I think, we just have two kinds of work visas that are possible to apply for in South Africa, the general work visa and the critical skill work visa. And the critical skill work visa has traditionally, at least before COVID, was prioritized as a fast-track application to be dealt with expeditiously. And I'll also talk about permanent residence based on critical skills. That is the only permanent residence category that Home Affairs has traditionally fast-tracked. After COVID, things changed. A lot of staff members left, a lot of brain resource material left the department, officials were suspended, senior managers resigned or were suspended for corruption. So Home Affairs has not been able, to be fair to it, to attract skills and to upskill them since COVID. So they don't have sufficient manpower, trained manpower, to take on the burden of all of these applications flowing into the department. And again, that, like a dangerous cocktail, mixed with a lack of sufficient political will, has produced this tremendous onslaught of criticism that Home Affairs is just not coming to the party and delivering, no matter what its public statements have been recently about these turnaround projects and endeavors.
Gary Eisenberg, immigration lawyer, good to speak to you. Thank you for your time tonight.